So when I was at Apex 23 and I was talking to the folks at Sampa, we did talk about their sales strategy for North America and how they've had to adapt that strategy over time because, of course, we've had some pretty dynamic times. Listening to what they had to say. From your perspective, how is serving the North American market different than, let's say, the European or Asian market? Since you're such a global company, you kind of see that entire picture. So how is North American different?
Well, it's more in the way that we go to market here. It's more in the way that we go to market, which differs from the way that we go to market in Europe or even South America, or Asia for that matter. Their sales are a lot more pulverized. Here in North America, we focus on large distributors. We have a very disciplined way of going to market. We'd like to allow our distributors to grow with us and to be very as profitable as possible with us, instead of trying to service different levels of distribution at the same time, which we don't think that that's conducive to growth and long-term relationships.
So Scott, when we're working with companies that are looking to sell heavy-duty parts through distribution in the North American market, we often hear them say things like, well, we want to sell through distribution, but that is a very broad description of who your customer is. So walk us through why it's important to develop an ideal customer profile, and then how that can change regionally depending on where you're selling.
Indeed. Well, in the North American aftermarket, it's really dominated by four kind of major verticals. And, we know what those verticals are. The OES supplier channel with the nameplate truck dealers. You have national WDs, companies that span coast to coast and touch every state and every province. And then you have independent members of buying groups, as well as specialty shops. And so we look at them in kind of those four categories. And depending on where you are in both Canada and the United States, coast to coast really depends on the majority of the volume of that distribution. And so on the East Coast, you're going to get a larger, denser population using a lot more of the highway infrastructure. And as you move west, past the Midwest, it becomes very heavy in agriculture. So a lot of your distribution base is servicing not just the trucking industry, but also other industries as well. And then you have the Rocky Mountains, and then beyond that into the West Coast, it's got its own kind of contained economy within itself.
Right. So what we end up seeing is that you need to have a sales strategy that's going to help you to win with a very specific customer type. You have to know who it is that you're selling to, and you have to kind of adapt your approach based on who it is you're selling to, but you also have to take those regional considerations and you have to think about the differences between regions. I know when I was selling parts, we had a headquarters that was in Quebec, which is French speaking, and in Eastern Canada. And we were all the way out in Western Canada, but not just Western Canada. We were in British Columbia, in the Vancouver area. Those markets could not be more different if you tried. Like, they are just so distinct, and you have to treat things differently. And so a one size fits all approach doesn't really work.